The general's voice cut through the morning calm like a sharp whistle. "I need a volunteer." The words echoed across the base, silencing the usual buzz of activity. Every soldier's eyes flicked toward the front, waiting to see who would step forward. Everyone expected one of the strongest, most battle-hardened recruits to answer the call. Instead, all eyes landed on Emily, a quiet clerk who had never been seen as more than someone who filed papers and handled logistics behind the scenes. Emily's hand lifted slowly. The movement was almost hesitant, but the look in her eyes was steady and calm. Whispers spread immediately through the crowd, some skeptical, others confused. Why would a woman who barely spoke up, who always stayed out of the spotlight, volunteer for something no one else dared? The drill sergeant, known for his gruff voice and ruthless training, stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he stared at Emily. "You sure about this? This isn't a desk job. It's a fight, a test. You ready to prove you belong here?" Emily met his gaze without flinching. "I'm ready." The general's lips twitched, almost a smile. He nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement of something no one else had seen yet. As the soldiers filed back to their duties, the tension lingered like a thick fog. Many doubted Emily's chances. In their minds, this was a game for the tough, the loud, the physically strongest. She was none of those things. But beneath her quiet exterior was a story no one knew, years of watching, learning, and a determination that had been quietly building. Emily wasn't new to challenge. Before joining the military, she had faced battles of a different kind, loss, hardship, moments where giving up seemed easier than moving forward. But she had chosen a different path, one of perseverance and quiet strength. This moment wasn't about proving the soldiers wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could stand tall when it mattered most. Back in the barracks, Emily prepared in solitude. While others talked strategy and lifted weights, she reviewed the course map carefully. Every obstacle was a puzzle, and she intended to solve it not with brute force, but with careful planning. She remembered the countless hours spent poring over manuals, understanding tactics, and observing the strengths and weaknesses of those around her. The morning sun climbed higher as the time for the challenge approached. Soldiers gathered around the training ground, the usual rowdiness replaced by a quiet anticipation. The drill sergeant laid out the course, walls to climb, mud pits to cross, timed runs, and mental puzzles designed to break the strongest spirits. Emily took her place at the start line. Her heart beat steadily, not with fear, but with focused determination. She knew this was about more than muscle. It was about resilience, strategy, and the courage to face every step without doubt. As the whistle blew, Emily moved forward. The first obstacles tested her balance and agility. She faltered briefly, but found her rhythm quickly. Others watched, surprised to see her steady pace. When she reached the climbing wall, Emily didn't try to power her way up. Instead, she found the right grips, using technique over strength. Soldiers who had once laughed now whispered in amazement. Every step brought new challenges, but Emily's mind never wavered. She planned each move, conserving energy where she could and pushing harder when it counted. Her calmness under pressure grew contagious. Even the drill sergeant's stern gaze softened with grudging respect. By the time she reached the halfway point, Emily had not only survived the course, but was quietly leading in ways no one expected. The crowd, once doubtful, now watched with growing admiration. Her story wasn't just about completing the challenge. It was about rewriting what it meant to be strong. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the training ground, Emily prepared for the toughest part of the course. She wasn't just fighting the obstacles ahead. She was fighting the expectations, the doubt, and the invisible barriers built by others' assumptions. This was her moment. The quiet clerk, overlooked and underestimated, was about to show everyone what true strength really looked like. The murmurs in the mess hall were hard to ignore. Soldiers exchanged doubtful glances and whispered behind their hands. "She's just Clerk," one muttered. This isn't her fight. Emily sat quietly at the edge of the room, her gaze steady but distant. She heard every word but didn't respond. Years of watching from the sidelines had taught her the weight of silence. It could be heavier than any shout. Emily's colleagues saw only the surface, a woman who spent her days shuffling papers, organizing files, and keeping the base running smoothly. They didn't see the countless early mornings she had spent training in secret, or the nights when she studied tactics and strategies, trying to understand what it truly meant to be strong. Strength, Emily knew, was more than muscle. It was patience, resilience, and the courage to keep going when everything told you to stop. Despite their doubts, Emily's determination never wavered. She remembered the words of her father, a retired soldier, who had always believed in quiet perseverance. "It's not about how loud you are," he had said. "It's about how steady you stand when the storm hits." Those words echoed in her mind now, steady as a heartbeat. That afternoon, Emily returned to the training ground alone. The sun was high, casting sharp shadows across the rugged terrain. She studied the obstacles again, the mud pits that could swallow a man whole, the towering walls that seemed impossible to scale, the narrow balance beams that tested every ounce of focus. Each one seemed designed to break even the strongest spirits. But Emily wasn't here to break. She was here to prove something no one else believed possible. The drill sergeant watched from a distance, arms crossed, eyes sharp as a hawk's. He had seen hundreds try and fail. Most never made it past the first few obstacles. Emily's quiet confidence was something new, something he hadn't encountered before. It unsettled him. Word of Emily's challenge spread quickly through the camp. By evening, more soldiers gathered around the training ground, their skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. Some even offered quiet words of encouragement. "Good luck," one said, nodding her way. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Emily didn't respond with words. She didn't need to. Her actions would speak louder than any cheer. As night fell, she reviewed her plan one last time, going over every detail in her mind. She knew the physical challenges were only part of the test. The real battle was mental, the battle to keep pushing when the body screamed to stop. The next morning arrived with a crisp chill in the air. The soldiers gathered again, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. The general stood at the front, his face unreadable, but his eyes sharp, watching every movement. The drill sergeant's voice cut through the cold air. "This is no game. You face this course with everything you've got. Failure is not an option." Emily stepped forward. The weight of doubt from the crowd pressed down on her, but she held her head high. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about breaking the mold and showing everyone that strength took many forms. The whistle blew, and Emily launched into action. The mud pit was first. Thick, cold, and unforgiving, it pulled at her boots as she struggled through. Muscles burned, breath hitched, but she kept moving, slow and steady. When she emerged, covered in mud but unbroken, the crowd stirred. Next came the walls. Others had tried to brute force their way up, only to fall back with bruised arms and shattered confidence. Emily climbed differently. She searched for handholds others missed, using her weight and balance carefully. Step by step, she ascended, the wall no longer an enemy, but a puzzle to solve. The drill sergeant's eyes narrowed. He was watching closely now, the challenge no longer just a test of strength, but of character. Emily's steady progress was unsettling. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. By midday, Emily had passed more obstacles than anyone expected. The whispers had changed. "Maybe she can do it," someone said. "She's got grit." But Emily didn't look to the crowd for approval. Her focus was inward, steady, and unwavering. Every step was a quiet victory against the voices that said she didn't belong. Every breath was a reminder that true strength was born from perseverance, not noise. The final stretch was approaching, and Emily could feel the weight of exhaustion creeping in. Her body ached, and her mind wrestled with doubt. But she remembered her father's words again, and with a deep breath, she pushed forward. This was more than a challenge. It was the moment that would change everything, for Emily, for the soldiers watching, and for the meaning of strength itself. The drill sergeant stood before the obstacle course, his face carved from stone. The sun beat down hard, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain ahead. He looked at Emily with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "This course has broken stronger men than you," he said, voice low and rough. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Emily met his gaze without hesitation. "I'm ready," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but there was a steel edge beneath it that made the drill sergeant pause for a moment longer than expected. The soldiers gathered, watching as Emily stepped forward. The course was brutal. Walls to climb, pits to cross, narrow beams to balance on, and timed runs that tested endurance to the limit. It was designed to push every part of the body and mind to their breaking points. Emily's hands tightened into fists as she surveyed the challenge. She knew this was more than just physical. It was mental, and she was ready. The whistle blew, sharp and clear. Emily moved out, steady and measured. The first obstacle was a mud pit, thick and unforgiving. She felt it pull at her boots, trying to drag her down. Others might have rushed, losing energy fast, but Emily leaned into it, letting her body adjust to the resistance. Inch by inch, she pushed through, the cold mud clinging to her skin but never breaking her spirit. Next came the climbing walls. Soldiers before her had tried to force their way up with brute strength, only to slip and fall back to the ground. Emily took the different approach. She studied the rough surface, searching for holds that others overlooked. Her fingers found tiny cracks, her feet positioned carefully to conserve energy. Step by step, she climbed, slow but sure, until she reached the top. A murmur rippled through the crowd. No one expected her to clear that part. The drill sergeant watched closely, his arms folded, eyes sharp as a hawk's. He had trained many, but Emily was different. Her quiet determination unsettled him. She wasn't just fighting the course. She was studying it, outthinking it. The balance beams came next. Narrow and high, swaying slightly in the breeze. Many faltered here, nerves getting the better of them. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. She moved with purpose, one foot carefully placed in front of the other. Her arms extended slightly, her gaze fixed straight ahead. The crowd held its breath as she crossed the beams without a single misstep. Every obstacle was a new test, but Emily met each one with the same calm focus. The soldiers watching began to shift in their seats. The doubts they had harbored were fading, replaced by a growing respect. Emily wasn't just surviving. She was setting a pace no one expected. The drill sergeant stepped forward, ready with the next challenge, a timed run across uneven terrain, designed to drain every ounce of energy. Emily's lungs burned as she pushed herself harder than ever. Her legs ached, muscles trembling, but she refused to slow down. She thought about everything that had brought her here, the years of quiet preparation, the moments of doubt she had faced alone, and the voices that told her she wasn't strong enough. As she crossed the finish line of the run, the crowd erupted in surprise. Emily's face was flushed, sweat streaking down her brow, but her eyes shone with something more, pride and unshakable determination. The drill sergeant's expression softened just a fraction. "You're tougher than you look," he muttered, almost to himself. He had seen many break under pressure, but Emily was holding steady. The soldiers began to whisper among themselves. Some nodded, others looked at her with newfound respect. Emily wasn't just the quiet clerk anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. But the course wasn't over. The hardest part lay ahead, a final test of mental strength and leadership. The drill sergeant would push her to her limits in ways that physical obstacles could never reach. Emily took a moment to catch her breath, her mind sharpening even as her body screamed for rest. She knew the real challenge was coming. It wasn't about speed or strength anymore. It was about standing tall when everything inside told her to fall. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the training ground. Emily squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. This was her moment to prove that true strength wasn't just muscle. It was courage, heart, and an unbreakable spirit. Emily's breath came in ragged bursts as she faced the next set of obstacles. Her muscles burned, sweat dripping down her brow, but her mind remained sharp, focused on each move ahead. The soldiers watching couldn't believe their eyes. The quiet clerk, once dismissed and overlooked, was moving with a calm precision that few had seen before. The mud pits and climbing walls had tested her body, but now it was about strategy. The course demanded more than raw strength. It demanded a clear mind. Emily approached each challenge like a puzzle. Instead of forcing her way through, she analyzed, adapted, and planned. When she reached the rope climb, most soldiers lunged up, relying on brute force, their arms shaking under the strain. Emily, however, took a different approach. She wrapped the rope carefully, using her legs to support much of her weight, conserving energy. Her movements were smooth, almost effortless, as she ascended, reaching the top with less exhaustion than expected. Below, the drill sergeant watched with growing respect. His usual stern expression softened just a fraction. He had trained many soldiers, but Emily's quiet intelligence was something new, a reminder that strength came in many forms. The balance beam loomed ahead, narrow, unstable, unforgiving. Soldiers before her had stumbled, losing precious time and confidence. Emily stepped onto the beam with steady feet, her eyes locked forward. She imagined herself walking a tightrope, each step deliberate. The ground seemed far away, but she didn't hesitate. Slowly, she crossed, arms outstretched for balance. The crowd held their breath, amazed at her steadiness. At the far end, a wall waited, tall and imposing, coated in slick mud from earlier rain. The soldiers who had tried before had slipped, falling back with bruised knees and shattered morale. Emily studied the wall, looking for anything to hold on to. Instead of fighting the mud, she adjusted her approach, testing each grip carefully, planting her feet firmly. Inch by inch, she climbed, every movement calculated. Her heart pounded, but fear didn't touch her. This was more than a physical trial. It was a test of will. When she reached the top, a low murmur rippled through the crowd. Some soldiers nodded in quiet approval. Others exchanged surprised glances. The drill sergeant's eyes lingered on her, no longer doubtful, but curious. The next challenge was a series of low crawls through narrow tunnels filled with dirt and debris. Most soldiers hurried through, desperate to finish. Emily slowed down, moving carefully to avoid injury, listening to her body. The tunnel was claustrophobic and dark, but she focused on steady breathing. When she emerged on the other side, dust-covered but unbroken, she paused for a moment, gathering strength for what was next. Her mind was her greatest weapon. She remembered lessons from her training, from watching others fail, from quiet moments studying maps and strategies. She knew this course was designed to push soldiers to their limits, to break their spirits. But Emily refused to break. The sun climbed higher, heat pressing down on the training ground. The soldiers watching began to shift, the earlier skepticism replaced by something more respectful. They whispered about her determination, about how she seemed to think while others rushed. Emily's pace never faltered. She knew the importance of conserving energy, of not letting frustration take hold. Every obstacle was a step forward, every breath a victory. The drill sergeant called out a challenge, an uphill sprint to the finish line, where a final wall awaited. Soldiers had failed here before, their bodies spent and spirits crushed. Emily's legs burned as she pushed forward, muscles screaming for relief. But she remembered the quiet moments when she had chosen to keep going, the times she had faced doubt and refused to give in. With steady steps, she reached the final wall. It was taller than any before, a last test of strength and courage. Emily grasped the edges, pulled herself up with all her remaining energy, and climbed. Her arms trembled, her breath shallow. But she didn't stop. At the top, she paused, looking down at the crowd below. The faces that once doubted her were now filled with awe. The drill sergeant's eyes met hers, no longer cold, but filled with a grudging respect. Emily climbed down carefully, her body exhausted, but her spirit unyielding. She had not only survived the course, she had outwitted it. She had proven that strength was not just muscle, but strategy, patience, and heart. As she stood tall, catching her breath, a silence fell over the crowd. In that moment, Emily was no longer just a quiet clerk. She was a soldier, tested and true. And the story of her strength was only just beginning. Emily stood at the edge of the training ground, her body aching, but her mind sharper than ever. The challenge was far from over. The drill sergeant stepped forward, his voice low but commanding. "You've shown grit," he said, "but now it's time to prove you have the heart to lead." The crowd grew silent, sensing the weight behind those words. Emily nodded, understanding this was no longer about physical endurance alone. Leadership, true leadership, meant something deeper. It meant making decisions under pressure, inspiring those around you, and standing firm when everything else was uncertain. She felt a quiet fire ignite within her, a determination stronger than any muscle in her body. The drill sergeant laid out the next test, a simulated mission requiring quick thinking, calm under fire, and teamwork. Emily was paired with a group of soldiers who had openly doubted her abilities just days before. Their expressions ranged from skeptical to outright dismissive. But Emily didn't flinch. She met their eyes with steady confidence and took a deep breath. The mission began. The group was tasked with navigating a complex terrain, identifying threats, and completing objectives under strict time limits. Chaos simulated gunfire, shouting, and confusion swirled around them, testing every nerve and reflex. Emily took the lead quietly, issuing clear, concise commands. "Left flank, cover me. Watch your six. Move slow, eyes sharp." Her voice didn't waver, even as adrenaline surged through her veins. The soldiers began to follow her lead, their doubts fading with every confident step she took. At one point, they faced a sudden obstacle, a narrow bridge over a shallow ravine, shaky and unstable. Several soldiers hesitated, eyes wide with fear. Emily moved forward calmly, assessing the bridge's condition. "One at a time," she instructed. "Hold the railing, keep your balance." Her steady presence calmed the group, and one by one, they crossed safely. The drill sergeant observed silently, impressed by Emily's natural command. Her quiet strength was pulling the team together, turning hesitation into action. Even the most skeptical soldiers were now trusting her instincts. As the mission progressed, they encountered a simulated enemy ambush. The sounds of gunfire erupted around them, and panic threatened to take hold. Emily's heart pounded, but her mind stayed clear. "Find cover. Return fire only when you have a clear shot," she ordered, positioning her team with calm precision. The soldiers responded, moving with newfound coordination. Emily's leadership was no longer a question. It was a lifeline. She moved through the chaos with a steady confidence, protecting her team and making tough decisions on the fly. When the mission ended, the team gathered breathless but victorious. The soldiers looked at Emily with respect, some even offering quiet nods of approval. The drill sergeant stepped forward, voice steady. "You led them well," he said, "not just with orders, but with heart." Emily felt a surge of pride, but also humility. She knew this was just the beginning. Leadership was not a title. It was a responsibility she was ready to carry. Her journey had transformed her from a quiet clerk into someone who could inspire and guide others, even in the most difficult circumstances. That evening, as the sun set behind the base, Emily sat quietly, reflecting on everything she had overcome. The doubts, the obstacles, the moments when giving up seemed easier than moving forward. She realized that true strength wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could rise, no matter the odds. Her story was no longer just her own. It had become a symbol of courage, resilience, and the unexpected power within those who are often overlooked. Emily wasn't just surviving. She was leading, inspiring, and changing the way everyone saw her. The camp buzzed with a new energy. Soldiers talked about her with respect and curiosity. The general himself nodded with approval, a rare smile breaking his usually stern demeanor. Emily had done more than complete the course. She had redefined what it meant to be strong. But deep inside, Emily knew the real victory was the quiet voice that told her every day, "Keep going. You belong here." And with that voice guiding her, she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The next morning, a crisp chill hung in the air as Emily stood quietly at the edge of the training field. Word of her remarkable performance had spread fast, and a crowd gathered, buzzing with a mix of admiration and disbelief. Some soldiers whispered about how the once overlooked Clerk was now commanding respect. Others wondered if this was just a lucky streak or the beginning of something greater. Emily didn't think about their opinions. Her focus was on what lay ahead. Today's challenge was different. It wasn't just about physical strength or leadership under pressure. It was about endurance, resilience, and heart. The drill sergeant approached, eyes sharp but carrying a hint of grudging respect. Today, you'll face the endurance run. It's long, grueling, and designed to test your limits. Only those who can push through will earn their place. Emily nodded. The distance ahead was intimidating, winding through rough terrain, steep hills, and narrow trails. Many had tried and failed before. She knew the physical pain would be brutal, but what worried her more was the mental battle, how to stay focused and motivated when every part of her wanted to give up. As the whistle blew, Emily took off at a steady pace, her breathing controlled, muscles working in sync. The pack of soldiers around her surged forward, some fast, some steady, but none quite like her. She felt the familiar burn in her legs, the sting of sweat in her eyes. But she didn't let it distract her. The trail twisted through rocky hills, roots snagging boots and uneven ground threatening every step. Soldiers around her began to falter, gasping for air, slowing down. Emily's mind whispered to herself, one step at a time. Keep moving. Halfway through the run, the sun climbed high, beating down relentlessly. Heat and exhaustion started to take their toll. Her breath grew ragged, and the pain in her muscles deepened. Other runners stopped to rest, some collapsing under the strain. But Emily pressed on, drawing strength from a quiet place inside, memories of past struggles, of every moment she had refused to quit. The drill sergeant's voice rang out from the sidelines. Keep going. Don't let the pain win. But it was Emily's own voice inside her head that mattered most. She thought about her family, her reasons for joining, and the countless hours she had spent preparing in silence. This was more than a race. It was a testament to everything she had fought for. As the finish line drew closer, Emily's pace faltered. Her legs shook with fatigue, and her lungs screamed for air. But she refused to slow, her eyes fixed on the distant flag fluttering in the breeze. The crowd's cheers grew louder, but Emily barely heard them. Her focus was on every breath, every heartbeat. When she finally crossed the finish line, her body trembled with exhaustion. Soldiers surrounded her, some cheering, others simply watching in stunned silence. Emily sank to her knees for a moment, catching her breath, then looked up with fierce determination. She had made it, not because she was the fastest, but because she refused to quit. The drill sergeant approached, his expression unreadable. Then, for the first time, a genuine smile cracked his stern face. You've got heart, soldier. That's what matters most. That day, Emily's victory wasn't just physical. It was a triumph of spirit. She had proven that endurance was more than a test of muscle. It was a battle fought in the mind and heart. The soldiers who had doubted her before now looked at her differently, not as the quiet clerk, but as a force to be reckoned with. Later, as the sun set over the base, Emily sat quietly, muscles aching but spirit soaring. She knew the path ahead would still be hard, filled with new challenges and tests. But she also knew this: no matter what came next, she had found a strength within herself that could never be taken away. Her story was no longer just about surprising others. It was about proving to herself that she belonged, that she was strong, and that quiet determination could move mountains. And with that belief, Emily was ready for anything. Emily woke to the sharp call of reveille, muscles still aching from the previous day's endurance run. But there was no time to rest. Today's challenge was rumored to be the toughest yet, a final test designed to push the limits of every soldier's physical and mental capacity. The drill sergeant's voice echoed in her mind. This isn't just about strength or speed. It's about everything you've learned and how you use it under pressure. As she laced her boots, Emily felt a surge of nerves and determination. The barracks buzzed with whispers. Some doubted she could survive the day's trial. Others watched in silent hope. Emily didn't let the noise reach her. She had come too far to let doubt derail her now. The morning mist still clung to the ground as the soldiers lined up at the start of the obstacle course. This was no ordinary test. It was a grueling combination of everything they had faced so far: climbing, crawling, sprinting, and making split-second decisions. The general himself was watching, his expression unreadable but intense. The whistle blew, and Emily surged forward. The mud pits, once daunting, now felt like familiar ground. She navigated the course with a growing confidence. Each obstacle was a memory of the past challenges she had overcome, fueling her forward. Halfway through, the drill sergeant shouted, "Mental test. You must solve the puzzle before moving on." A series of complex instructions awaited: a map, a code to crack, a plan to devise. While others hesitated, frustrated by the pressure, Emily's calm mind kicked in. She studied the clues methodically, connecting dots that others missed. Her fingers traced the map, her mind piecing together the path forward. When she finally spoke the answer, the drill sergeant nodded approvingly. "Good. Now move." The final stretch was brutal. Exhaustion clawed at her body, and the sun scorched the open field. Soldiers dropped out, defeated by pain or frustration. Emily's breath came in sharp gasps, but she refused to stop. Her mind replayed the faces of those who believed in her, the quiet lessons learned from every stumble and every small victory. The last obstacle was a steep, rocky hill crowned by a narrow ledge. Reaching the top meant more than finishing the course. It meant proving she could conquer fear itself. Emily's hands scraped against rough stone as she climbed. The wind whipped her hair, and her heart thundered in her chest. One misstep could send her tumbling down. But she didn't look down. She didn't falter. Inch by inch, she climbed, her body screaming for rest, but her spirit unyielding. When she finally pulled herself onto the ledge, the crowd erupted in cheers. The general stepped forward, his usual stern face softened by a rare smile. "You have earned your place," he said simply. Emily felt a rush of emotion, pride, relief, and a deep sense of belonging. She had not only passed the toughest test, but shattered every expectation placed upon her. She was no longer the quiet clerk. She was a soldier, tested and proven. As she walked back through the camp, soldiers approached her with nods and handshakes. The drill sergeant clapped her on the shoulder. "You've changed the game," he said. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone who thought strength had only one face." That night, Emily sat alone under the stars, the weight of the day settling in. She thought about the journey, the doubt, the struggle, and the moments when giving up seemed easier. But she also thought about the quiet voice inside her that had kept her going. That voice had become her greatest strength. Her story was far from over. But one thing was clear: She had earned her place, not by being the loudest or the strongest, but by being steady, smart, and unbreakable. And in that steady strength, Emily had found her true power. Emily stood quietly in the dim light of the barracks, the hum of the bass settling into a calm rhythm around her. The journey that had once seemed impossible was now behind her, yet she knew this was only the beginning. The respect she had earned was real, but it came with new responsibilities and challenges she hadn't yet faced. She had proven herself on the training ground, but the real test of a soldier's character awaited in the field. The following morning, orders came down from the general himself. A deployment was imminent, and Emily was assigned to a critical mission, one that would push her leadership and resilience to their limits. She was no longer the quiet clerk hidden behind paperwork. She was now a soldier, entrusted with lives and decisions that mattered deeply. Emily gathered her team, a mix of seasoned soldiers and new recruits, many of whom still looked at her with a mixture of awe and skepticism. She knew their doubts would only disappear through action, not words. So she led by example, early mornings, late nights, and unwavering focus. Her calm demeanor inspired confidence, and slowly, the team began to rally around her. The mission was grueling from the start. Navigating treacherous terrain, facing unpredictable weather, and dealing with constant threats required every ounce of their training. Emily's mind remained sharp, analyzing every situation and adjusting plans as needed. Her years as a clerk, organizing details and anticipating problems, now served her well in the chaos of the field. During one tense night patrol, the team encountered an unexpected enemy ambush. Bullets tore through the darkness, and panic threatened to break their formation. Emily's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold your ground. Focus on your sectors. We move on my mark." Her clear commands steadied the team. They responded with precision, covering each other and pushing back with controlled fire. In the aftermath, Emily moved among her team, checking on wounds and offering quiet words of encouragement. The soldiers no longer saw her as just a clerk. They saw a leader who faced danger alongside them, who shared their fears and their determination. As days turned into weeks, Emily's reputation grew. The general noted her progress, commending her in briefings, and using her as an example for others. But for Emily, the true reward was the trust of her team, the nods, the shared glances, the unspoken bond forged in hardship. There were moments when doubt still crept in, quiet whispers questioning if she was truly ready. But Emily learned to silence them with action, with persistence, with a steady heart. She remembered every obstacle, every challenge, every small victory that had brought her here. One afternoon, as the mission reached a critical point, Emily led a daring rescue operation. A fellow unit was trapped behind enemy lines, and time was running out. The odds were against them, but Emily's calm strategy and decisive leadership guided her team through dangerous territory. They reached the stranded soldiers, extracting them safely and returning under heavy fire. The relief and gratitude in her team's eyes were a powerful reminder of why she had chosen this path. It wasn't about proving herself to others anymore. It was about serving, protecting, and standing tall when it mattered most. Back at base, Emily stood before the assembled soldiers, the weight of her journey evident in her steady gaze. "Strength isn't just muscle," she said quietly. "It's courage when you're afraid. It's standing up when others fall. It's never giving up, even when no one is watching." Her words echoed through the camp, inspiring not just her team, but every soldier who heard them. Emily had become more than a soldier. She was a symbol of quiet strength, resilience, and unexpected leadership. The quiet clerk had transformed into a leader who had earned her place through grit, heart, and unwavering determination. And as she looked to the future, Emily knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning of a story far greater than she had ever imagined.